Welcome to the Heart of It All. I'm Teri Hart. We hear from people all the time that what caregivers need to do is make sure they find time for themselves. During the hardest year of her life, sportscaster Evanka Osmak discovered something just for her, and it may just be the thing that got her through. Today on the Heart of It All, Evanka Osmak and her new memoir, When the Game Changes. Hi there, and welcome to the Heart of It All. I am Teri Hart. Please make sure you are subscribing to this pod wherever you are listening so that you never miss an episode. At the beginning of 2021, sportscaster Evanka Osmak had a lot on her plate. We were about a year into the pandemic. She had 2 young boys and a husband and was anchoring evening sports at Sportsnet, a job that had anything but traditional hours. That January, Ivanka's mom, Jeanne, the heart and soul of their family, had a terrible fall while at the park with Ivanka and her kids. From there, it was a long process of discovering what was wrong. The ALS diagnosis came in September. The same month, Ivanka discovered something that was just for her, a hobby that let her lose herself in the task at hand, staying upright, and maybe getting a puck in deep. Evanka Osmak is a veteran anchor at Rogers Sportsnet. Before television, she studied civil engineering at Queen's University. Her passion for sports and broadcasting landed her a job in Arizona and then eventually Sportsnet in Toronto in 2007. Ivanka, hi friend. Thanks so much for being here on the Heart of It All.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start talking about your mom. Tell me about your mom, Jeanne.
Jeannie she was so fun. She was an extraordinary mom, grandmother. Um, she was loved to laugh, like her laughter and her like big, I wouldn't call it a giggle, but haha, like cackle in a way will I'll never forget. Like it's just music to my ears. She was a cheap laugh and she was smart. I wouldn't say she was a perfectionist, but she just did everything right. She was like paid attention to detail and she knew what she wanted. And she had this amazing ability to relate to people no matter what she was dealing with, whether it was like in a social setting with friends or with strangers or at the market or, when she was dealing with contractors or in business situations, like she just had this relatability and it was admirable. Yeah, she was great. She was the best.
I don't think I've ever said this in, 28 episodes, but for people who are just listening to this, run over to YouTube and look at Ivanka's face when she's talking about her mom, because that's
Yeah.
how we all want somebody's face to look when we're being spoken of. What a beautiful
Mhm.
thing. Like, really lovely to
Mm.
see that, Ivanka. Jeanne was diagnosed with ALS in September of 2021. And the diagnosis came after, you and your family seeing changes in your mom. What were some of those first things that indicated that there could be a health issue?
Her vocabulary became very simple. And she became basic, and that wasn't my mom. Like, my mom always had something to say, had an opinion, had detailed answers. As I was just saying, she was a social person, so she could talk with anyone. And when her dialect became very simple, it wasn't right. So, I think I wrote about it in the book that there was a fall, in January, and her reaction, like, it was the reaction to that, triggered, where it just didn't seem normal. And then, weeks went by, months went by, and I talked to my sister and brother and my dad, and it was off. And everything that came out of her mouth was, "That's good. That's good." And you're like, "No, that's not good." And it was when someone outside of our OG family of 5 said something to me that, "Your mom doesn't seem right." That you're like, "Oh, other people are seeing it. Okay. This isn't just us reacting to our mom and being sensitive.
So at that point, you mentioned you've got, 2 older siblings, Kay and Nick, and your dad, Borden, but you use the Ukrainian word for dad. What is it? It's a beautiful word.
Tatu. Tatu,
Tatu.
his father. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got Kay, you've got your brother Nick, you've got Tatu. At that point, what conversations do the 4 of you have about what the next steps are, about taking care of Jeannie? And do those conversations include her?
So no, we didn't because she didn't have a reaction. Everything was, "That's good." And so there was no, like, part of her that was, "Something doesn't feel right. I don't feel myself," or my voice is going, or I can't move. I don't have something like breathe, nothing. And so the 4 of us had some conversations on our own, and that was really difficult because my dad found it extremely difficult because he felt like he was going behind my mom's back. They had just celebrated no, or about to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, that 2021. And so he felt really like, I don't want to speak behind my wife's back, Jeannie's back. But we had conversations. And again, when this person close to our family said something to me, that's when we started talking about it more. And again, Teri, like, go back to this year, 2021. It was still COVID crazy. Like, I know, at least in Toronto, right? It was still limited of what you could do. You still had to wear masks. At this point, I wasn't back at work yet. I was still on mat leave. And so getting a doctor's appointment, or going to the hospital, it wasn't easy. Like, we were still dealing with the aftermath of the pandemic, or in the pandemic. And so we tried to get a doctor's appointment and setting up all that and get a CT scan and MRI and all of these things. And it was just, that was like proved to be even harder. But yeah, we did talk as the 4 of us, like, kind of, I hate to say behind my mom's back, but because she didn't seem capable of having a conversation.
That is so fascinating and so emotionally complicated.
Totally.
Ugh, like, I can't imagine, and then realizing that your dad was already having complicated feelings
Hmm.
about these conversations with his children outside of your mom's participation. I'm gonna take it one step further, Ivanka. Then what conversations did you, Kay, and Nick have about your dad and how he was going to be able to manage being what was becoming more and more apparent, a primary caregiver?
Yeah. Well, the thing was, no one knew what she was dealing with and suffering from. And so my dad, I think, was in a bit of denial of what she had, but we didn't know. So it wasn't like we could harp on my dad being like, it's this, like, this is the treatment she needs. We had no answers. And I think we all went through denial, and certainly my dad, of like, okay, we'll get through this. Is it whatever it is, we'll get through this. And so, yeah, there were moments of frustration with my dad. Like, you got to see she's not herself. Like, we have to do something, but we didn't know what to do. So you're going back and forth of like, you want to act and you want to be proactive as opposed to reactive, but we just didn't know. And then again, the layer of COVID where it was just like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
Your boys, as you said, you were on mat leave, when this happened and when your mom started exhibiting symptoms, and so your youngest was very young, and your eldest, George, was not that much older. He was 4, I think? You've got
Hmm.
the 4-year age gap. And they had a great relationship with their Nama, as they called her.
Yeah.
Um, how did you talk as a mom, not to Blake, but certainly to George, about the changes?
Yeah, yeah. For certainly with Blake, we did not really talk about it. He was 1, and so it was just couldn't understand at all. With George, we didn't start to talk about it until noticeable changes. And when I mean that, it's like when the breathing machine came into the house and when she was using that more and more. And so when there were machines, when there was apparatus, when she couldn't leave the couch, when she couldn't move, couldn't talk, those things when they became so noticeable for even a 4-year-old can pick up on that, like, obviously the machine there. And, I think I believe in honesty and being as transparent and open as possible, so, yeah, Nama's very sick, and she has ALS, and just say what it is. But I try and talk about it now as it's been, 4 years later, and what it was, and I hope he understands, but I don't think you can as a 4-year-old, right? Like, he just knows that she was sick, and it was a bit odd, but I when we were at their house, because that's the only place that we would see them, tried to make it as normal as possible.
There's so many beautiful passages in the book, and we're gonna talk about the game changing, not just with your mom, but what you
Mhm,
discovered, because I think that that is so much about a caregiving experience. But there's a beautiful passage in the book about you showering your mom, and you and
mhm,
your older sister had taken on that responsibility when you were visiting, and that's such a vulnerable experience, I think, Ivanka. It evoked that in me, a vulnerable experience for you both for Jeannie, your mom, and yourself. But you had this very, "Okay, this is what we're doing, let's do it, let's go," kind of attitude, forward motion, and I do think that caregiving forces us into that forward motion that we could have never imagined before we were doing it. How do you think that experience of really hands-on caregiving with your mom changed you?
I don't think I took a breath from her diagnosis to her death, and you don't realize that until they're gone, where you're like, "That was a lot," right? Now here I'm gonna cry. And so I think that's just maybe it's my attitude or my family, got it from my mom, Jeannie, I'm sure, where it's just you go through it, and seeing her not look like her made up self and her hair not how she had had it, like, she had the same hairdo for practically my whole life and, would dress well, and so when you see someone that that's not their standard or that's not what they would normally look like, you do everything I did want to do everything in my power to do that, and my dad was already taking on so much, and so the showering, the blow drying her hair, the buying clothes for her, putting her in something, anything to make her look like my mom. That's what yeah, that's what we were all trying to do, and I really think just we moved through it day by day because we didn't know how long it would last. You don't know, like, we had no idea. The deterioration, though, was so rapid and so quick, and I know this conversation I'm sure you've had many times on your podcast is, like, what's better, what's worse is, like, this long drawn out disease where you're, years or where you're losing your person or short, and I feel like it was relatively short for my mom, but, like, seeing her in that state where she was losing, like, her ability to communicate and be herself and to move and to breathe in the end, you're just like, "This is this is it. This is" it was so much, but I would say, like, it wasn't until after her passing where you're like, "Oh, we just got through that, or we just went through that," right?
Cheryl Hickey was on this podcast, and she said something to me that I'll never forget, and I had never thought about it before. And we were talking she lost her dad and, having a similar conversation to this one, and she said, "But Terry, did you ever think about the fact that your dad got a front row seat to you taking care of him, to how proactive you were, to how smart you were, to how caring you were?" And honest to goodness, I had never thought about that through the whole experience with my dad and afterwards, my grieving process. I'd never thought about that. And I wonder if you thought about that, if you thought about Jeannie sitting on that light green couch when you walked in and with your spirit and with your smile and saying, "I just got off the ice." If you thought
Yeah.
about what she saw in you.
Ugh, no, never. Never. I my whole life has been trying to make my parents proud and not disappoint them, and so, carried that through until the very end, I hope, but I've never thought about it that way, actually. I wouldn't have said this or known this, obviously, before her deterioration in the year of 2021, but what a blessing to be able to take care of someone who who raised you and made you who I am, and really, like, it was an honor to be able to do a little thing like shower with make sure she was clean and make sure she looked good, and bring her some joy in such a hard struggle and a terrible thing that no one should have to suffer through. And so, yeah, I just think lucky me that got to take care of my mom, because she did everything for my siblings and me, everything.
Yeah, I said in the intro that you said in the book, she was the heart and soul of your family. And
She was the glue.
one of the things that I decided consciously was that when my dad got sick, that I was going to live so that I have no regrets. And I was really
Mhm.
able to do that. I was very, very lucky to be able to do that based on a bunch of different circumstances. I'm wondering if you consciously made any decisions through that year, Ivanka, that were kind of your North Star.
Well, I think, and it comes into play where I started to play hockey. And my mom was always said this, like, even when I was growing up, do something for you, and be active and be interesting. And so I think my North Star was still not losing myself in all of this, and being present for my mom, and being there for her and my family. Like, family just became everything, right? Because that's all you have, and you realize that in these moments. So, I think that's what got me through. That my children and my husband and the core Osmak family, the OGs, is just, we're doing it for them, because that's what it's about.
Okay, so you mentioned hockey.
Yes.
And what a part of this story, what a part of this year, this fully transformative year of your life, you make a
Mhm.
decision to have something just for you. You talk about getting off the hamster wheel. You talk
Yeah.
about the fact that it was, the kids, your husband, your mom, and then it was just you needed to find yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, Ivanka, where you saw your life headed and the fact that you knew you had to, like, take an off ramp somewhere.
Listen, I am not a good hockey player. I will never be a great hockey player, but there's something about, maybe I was turning 40, where I'm like, "What am I doing? Let's shake things up." We encourage our children and tell people to, our children especially, to try something new and get outside your comfort zone, and, what's the worst that could happen? And so my husband had always played hockey, and my oldest son, George, had started, and I just thought, "They have so much fun. Why don't I have fun? Let's try it." And
You talk about hockey for a living. You watch hundreds of
I
hours of
know,
hockey.
I know. And I had never played, Terry, which is crazy. I mean, I played field hockey, but I never played ice hockey. And yet, yes, I watch so many hours of hockey, and I love it, but I never played. And so you just have to do something that challenges. It's been so fun to try something new. And I remember, like, stepping on the ice for the first time, and and being so wobbly and falling and being like, "This is the best. This is great." You just have to. I love a challenge. I do. And so it could be hockey, like, insert whatever. I think you have to, as we age, we have to do things that, like, spark us or are new to us, and a little bit hard. I don't have to think when I'm really out there, but, it's been so good for me. And again, it could be anything. It could be another sport, or it could be art, or it could be music, whatever, just to inflame that spark. And so, I play every week, and it's so much fun getting on the ice and then ripping my helmet off after, and I'm just drenched in sweat. My kids ask me how I did, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud.
As you should be. So hockey begins September of 2021. Your mom has the fall.
So January 2021, and then September 21, I picked up hockey. Yeah.
We tell our kids to try something new, get out of our
Mm.
comfort zone. What's the worst thing that can happen? subconsciously, how much do you think, Ivanka, this was something that had nothing to do with that core Osmak family, with
Mhm.
your husband and your children, with what you were facing with your mom, something completely outside of that?
Mhm. Mhm. 100%. I mean, I had a one-year-old at home and call it selfish, but I don't actually. I think it was so important for me to have one thing that was mine, like that I could go to the rink and I totally you forget about work, you forget about responsibilities. You don't have time because especially when I was, in my early days of on the ice, like I don't have time. I have to stay on the ice on my skates and not fall. And and that's all you can think about. And what a great escape to like just not think about the real world. Like the number of times, Terry, I have tried yoga and meditate, and it's just not for me, and I just can't do it, and my mind, like, eventually gets back to, "What did I have to get for dinner?" or "What am I gonna wear tomorrow?" Whatever, and there's no time for that. It is so nice to, like, just get away from life.
And I want to be clear, this was not a joining hockey and then you go to the locker room and you talk about your mom. You very
Nope.
much joined hockey and they did not know. There was one teammate who knew what
Mhm,
the situation with your mom was because she was a friend of your sister's,
mhm.
but and she brought up your mom once,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that, like, rocked you because it's like,
yeah,
"Wait, that doesn't belong here, this doesn't belong there." It's like worlds colliding in a way you didn't want them to.
yeah.
I was really, really interested in that compartmentalization and what that allowed you or why that worked for your mental health.
I think I did it a lot. I mean, I did it for work, did it at hockey, where I just couldn't afford to break down. And I had no idea how quickly it was gonna deteriorate for my mom. So how long would we be suffering? How long would you be in this place? And I just I don't think you can put your entire life on pause for that. So you have to find some joys, like, you have to find something. And so, and that's not being selfish, you have to. And so it also, like, playing hockey or working, which I know brought my mom so much joy. She loved watching, and then we could talk about it. I drive out to Oakville and I tell her about it, and I know that meant a lot to her because she loved hearing about work and everything I did and what the kids were doing, and so by having still a life of my own and being able to compartmentalize and then talk about I know was important and healthy, and again, it probably goes back to, moving forward and with the shower,
Mm.
like, you just have to keep going and doing the best I can, and that's what I figured I was doing.
It's so brave what you did in terms of realizing what you needed to get through this, Ivanka. If you
Mhm.
can offer up to people what that time meant to you as a person outside of all of the other responsibilities in your life.
I mean, listen, I was very fortunate that I have 2 siblings who were incredible, and we leaned on each other, right? So that afforded me to still work and, come back home and be with my family and play hockey and do things like that. I mean, it really is a village. And then, of course, my dad. I didn't realize because I had never really been through this with a parent or I had known anyone who had been a caretaker. It's such oh my gosh, it's such an immense weight and pressure, and it's so difficult, but I think, I hope my sister and brother would say this as well, because we had each other, we were able to hand off and take shifts, so to speak, and lean on each other. If I didn't have my siblings, like, oh my god, I can't imagine. I can't imagine because even just being able to say check in with them about their mental health or about my mom's status and doctor's notes and receipts and everything. It's so much on yourself. And I felt Like the burden, not burden, but weight my dad must have felt living with that 24/7 was like, we have to help. You have to help as much as you can. The caretaking role is like unbelievably difficult and challenging and stressful. And I don't know if you're on your own, I don't know how you like take time for yourself. Like, listen, I was lucky and I had others.
I'll tell you, the whole reason for this podcast, why I started this podcast is because going through it with my dad, I was like, "Why is nobody talking about this? Why is this so
Oh,
hard? This is something we're all gonna go through to one degree or another, if we're lucky." If we're lucky to
mhm,
have seniors and people who are living long. I mean, your mom was very young, but, you know, if we want to be able to caregive, we have
mhm.
to be able to talk about what that actually means.
Yeah. I mean, again, it was, you see my dad and like, I can imagine the struggle he felt. My mom had taken care of the home for 50 years, and then the rules like flip like that. And all of a sudden, at least my dad was capable when my mom was taking care of the home, but she now can't do anything. And you are literally helping her breathe, putting the apparatus, putting the breathing machine, turning it on for her because she was incapable of doing that in the last couple of months, going outside and driving her, and rolling down the window in the middle of December when it's freezing out to get, because she can't breathe and she needs air. Like my dad witnessed all that, but then you also have to do other things, like, I can't imagine him living, like, so I feel guilty that I got to go home every day, right? And I got to go home and not have this, like, "Oh my god, my mom is there," and I got to leave every night, but my dad was there in it every day, and it just it's a lot. It's so much.
Yeah,
It's so much.
it is so much.
Um,
It is so much. You talk about your brother and sister, you talk about your dad, you obviously were a unit in this
mhm,
in a way that I think not all families are able to be. But you did have some conversations amongst the 4 of you about what the right next steps were for Jeannie, whether it be staying at home, whether it be long-term care facility that had more readily accessible medical care, and not everybody was on the same page.
mhm.
Can you talk about working through those things together as a family and how you got to where you got? And feeling good about the compromises everybody had to make around Jeannie's care?
Those were some really hard conversations. Those were awful, actually, because we wanted I can speak for my brother and sister, we wanted to be so sensitive to my dad and what he needed, right? Again, he is living with my mom, so what can he handle? And so it's almost like, everyone had a vote, but he had his vote counted for more. So it was actually the conversation where, we had like home or not. And again, the COVID, it was like, do we want to do this? What does that mean? Are our visitation rights restricted? If we put her in the home at this time? It's a cost. It's a cost having someone come to your house every day. Like, it's not just as easy as like, okay, well, we'll just have someone come daily and take care of her. But my dad needs to get out and do things. And so there needs to be someone there. Like, oh my gosh. And then the last conversation we had about it was January. It would have been January, days before was admitted to the hospital and days before her birthday. And we had a conversation of like what we're going to do. And I think we decided, okay, we're going to lean towards a home. And then she passed away in the hospital. And I always took that. It may have even been the night before. Gosh, Terry, I always took that as she's telling us this. Sorry, this is like her saying to the family, "You guys have done enough. Thank you. We're good. This is, this is how it's gonna end, and I'm choosing myself now." And then she passed away on January 25th, 5th, but it was literally like a day after or 2 or 48 hours after we had thought, "Okay, we're in agreement. This is the decision we make," and then she she, um, she died. And so I look at it as a blessing in that sense that, like, what could have been a really tricky, navigating, like, that not everyone was entirely on board with one decision or the other is that Jeannie just said, like, "I'm I'm I'm gonna do this,"
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I choose to see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that we all make choices in how we view things. My dad, not dissimilar, my dad, we had a meeting scheduled with the outpatient people for him to come home on the
Mhm,
Friday, um, not knowing if he'd be able to come home. He was probably not going to be able to come home, but he was gonna have to not live with my mom, and, he died on Thursday morning in his sleep, and honest to goodness, Ivanka, I look at it exactly the same way.
yeah.
This was going in a direction that he was not interested in, thank you very much.
Yeah, 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 and it's nicer thinking about it that way than, I don't know, the alternative, right? Or
Yeah,
having
for
some
sure.
closure, I suppose.
And I think for me, I don't know for you, but it feels like he did have some free will in this at a time when
Mhm.
he didn't have a lot of free will and a lot of other decisions that were being made about him, and
Yeah.
I like that for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Me too. Ugh.
Had you had conversations with Jeannie about her caregiving wishes before the "I'm good"? Did you know anything about or did your dad know? Like, did he seem clear on what her person would have wanted before ALS robbed her of so much?
No, no, the ALS to all of us was the unknown. Didn't know what it would do to her, didn't know how quickly she would deteriorate, like, we didn't have a chance to have that conversation because we didn't know how bad it would get and how awful. We didn't know anyone who had it.
Do you wish you had of, or do you feel like that was unnecessary? Has your mind changed about how we talk about end of life now after what you went through with your mom?
I think for me, her life played out and her last few months and days played out as it should have. She was in her home until she could no longer be at home, and I believe that's where, she would have wanted to be. Is a conversation necessary? Yes, I'm sure for others and going forward, I would have that, talk to my dad about it for sure, what he wants and what's important to him, absolutely. But I think I never even think about that with my mom because it happened as it was supposed to.
What were some of the helpful things that friends and colleagues said to you when you did let them know about
Mm.
your mom and when you were really in the trenches, Ivanka?
Mhm.
What was okay, was there is there anything helpful?
I had a friend who lost her father in the middle of when my mom was suffering and deteriorating, 2 months before Jeannie died, and so she was really a comfort just to talk to someone that has been through it, that relatability, and then since then, it's been amazing having someone who's in this club to talk with, right? Having her say, "I've gone through this, you're gonna be okay, or you can talk to me, or just cry with me and just break down," was like was a gift, was an absolute gift. I still find this, as you're probably noticing today, talking about her was really hard, and talking about the reality of what she was going through was, like, extremely difficult, so I don't know if I actually talked about it with friends that often because it was easier not to, and it was easier, again, just put your head down, and this is what my parents both ingrained in all of us growing up was like, "Put your head down, get to work." That's how we were raised, and so I think that's what the September to January was just like, "Get through this." So, I didn't talk about it a lot.
You write in the book, "The very last thing I said to her was, 'I love you.'" As I said, dad wasn't supposed to die. He was supposed to come home. But crazily, that was exactly the same thing I said to my dad. I was at the hospital visiting him on the Wednesday night. We brought his dog in to see him. And I was leaving. I was like, bye, dad. Love you. And he was like, love you too, Terry Leonard, which he called me, obviously. Eh, I mean, what a blessing. Like,
Mhm.
are we the luckiest people in the world that we have that as our last moments with our beloveds?
Yes, and also, I will always have a tremendous amount of guilt that I wasn't there in the hospital.
Oh.
So I said I love you at her house before she was admitted to the hospital, and then we got my husband got COVID, so we retreated north. We were able to go there, and I drove home. I drove home from the cottage because I had still tested negative, and I got home, and that was when my dad called and said, "Your mom's had cardiac arrest." And I got to the hospital probably 10, 15 minutes too late for that. So, yes, my last 2 words to her face to face were, "I love you," but there will always be, a part of me that's like, I missed I missed her, you know? I missed her in the hospital, and I miss saying, like, that final goodbye, but
How are you going to give yourself a break about that?
um, I don't I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's I can't pin my my relationship and my everything on that I'm missing that one thing because I had a lifetime of, like, amazing memories, and, like, as you said, off the top when I described my mom was incredible, and I have so much love, and so no, I think I it's a shame, and it's a little bit of regret and guilt, but I also had the best of my mom, and I know she had the best of me, so that's what I hang on to, right? And what can you do? What can you do? You can't change.
And I mean, you've said a couple times, and I believe you say it with truth, that things played out the way they needed to or should have. And there's so
Mhm.
much documentation. I struggle with the fact that my dad died in his sleep alone sometime between 5 and 6 in the morning. And I wasn't there. My mom wasn't there.
Mhm.
And I struggle with that.
Mhm.
Um, but there's all kinds of literature and documentation from people who work in palliative care that people sometimes won't let themselves pass if other people are there, and they have to.
Mhm.
And there's that too, Ivanka. I hope you
Mhm.
know that that liter
Yeah.
that truth in the medical community actually exists also.
Yeah. I mean, I my dad was by her side, and that's something, right? Like, they had a great love and a great relationship and so much time, and then my sister and brother were able to get there and that's how it is, but that doesn't take away from anything that I had with my mom, and we just because she had been suffering and thank maybe not thank God, but, like, it wasn't sudden in that sense of, like, 1 minute she was there, the next she was gone. It had been building so that everything was set on the table. There were no regrets, like,
Yeah.
she knows, I know, she knows, and I know how much she loved me, like, all of that, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
so I that's how I'm okay with it.
Um, how's your dad doing? How's he doing?
He's okay. He's okay. I mean, winter's always hard, right? Like, winter is long and bleh. And so it keeps him inside more. My mom was the social butterfly. My mom was the one who coordinated dinners and dates and travel, and so I am proud of my dad. I'm so proud of my dad that he has, kept up a social community because he realizes he needs to have, adult conversation. Yes, I'm so proud of him because he didn't have to initiate when my mom was around, and he does now, and so that is amazing, and my relationship with my dad is so much stronger than it was. My mom was the conduit. She was the glue, right? And so I would go through her to find out about him or hear the latest, and now to go through my dad and just we have that one-on-one that we never had before is a really is a gift and a nice special relationship that has been born through all of this, and we have a deeper connection than we ever did. But the truth, like, he's lonely. He's lonely, and I know it, and I imagine it, and I so we try and push him, my siblings and I, to get out and do things, and he is still active in his own way, but, like, it's hard. I can't imagine. It's hard to not have your person when you did for so long, and you
Yeah.
take him for granted, I'm sure.
Yeah, I say to people, my mom's great and she's doing
Mhm.
wonderfully. My parents were married for 56 years. And
Wow.
I say often, people think it is, getting married. People think it is leaving your house. People think it is having children. Mm-mm-mm. If you are in a long-term marriage, this is the biggest change of your life.
Oh god,
I
yeah.
mean, I only lived with them for 22 years. That's nothing
Mhm.
compared to 56.
I know.
So,
And it's the memories, it's the, things that remind you of them, and he's living in the house, he's still in the house that she built, and they built together, but it was very much her vision and her dream, and so, ah,
very few of us would sign up for this role. It's such a hard
mhm,
role, but most of us will find ourselves in the position of caregiving for a parent, a loved one, an aunt, and uncle, whatever it is, in a way that you lived so readily and so recently. What advice would you give somebody who is facing a loved one that has a deteriorating illness?
mm, gosh. So that's a hard one. I mean, my hope is that they have a caretaker has an outlet, whether that's a person, a hobby, an interest, and maybe it's 5 minutes a day to talk to someone else or 5 minutes a day just to catch your breath, and I know we're not all lucky to have, other people or support network. Sometimes it is all on them, but I just to take some time to have a clear head or to be themselves or take a break every day, I think is so necessary. That would be my advice. Yeah, is, keep your health keep yourself healthy because you're trying to take care of someone else.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
hey, Osmak, what's your goal count this year?
Yeah. Hey, Terry, I am on a 4-game goal streak, FYI, okay? Ah, I know. Get those pucks in deep, as, my coworker Kenny always says, Kenny Reed. It's so fun. It's so fun to just, you know, sweat and get out there and be aggressive and challenge, and it's just been fun.
You
Yeah,
must think every time that you get that puck in, you must think of your mom. Like, you
I
must think,
do. Oh my gosh, she'd be cackling, and this laugh I told you about, she would be cackling because, like, "What are you doing?" And just I mean, she'd probably come to my games, or in the middle of a day on a Wednesday, but oh, yeah, she would love it. She'd be cackling.
"Thank you for this. I know it's a lot. I know it's
Yeah.
hard." I didn't think I was gonna cry quite that much, but, I thought I
Mm.
got a lot of it out reading your book, which is out now and everybody should go and get because it's really, really touching, and it's also, it's that thing of what it actually meant to you. I honestly believe, Ivanka, reading this book, that your finding hockey allowed you to be so much more present for your mom and your
Mhm,
dad when they
mhm.
needed you most. I truly, truly believe it, and you read it in those pages so fundamentally.
I hope so. Thank you for reading it. I so appreciate it. I wrote it with Christina Rutherford, who did the heavy, lifting, and she did an amazing job. I'm so proud of her, and I'm lucky that I worked with her. But it was really healing. I didn't go to therapy, but this was definitely my sessions with Christina's getting it all out and talking to you. I don't do it often, right? I don't talk about her like this, and so to open up about the experience and the relationship I had with my mom and the wonderful person she was. is also really healing. So thank you for having me on and asking me these questions.
Thanks, friend. Let's see each other like not in a computer screen soon, okay?
Would love that. Big hug in person.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ivanka. We are so thankful to Ivanka for being here on The Heart of It All. I highly recommend her book, When the Game Changes, Losing My Mom and Finding Myself. You'll really get to know Jeanne and be cheering Ivanka's hockey journey on throughout reading. Now, we are celebrating a big milestone this week, 6 months of The Heart of It All. We'd like to thank our amazing guests who've generously given us their time, stories, and expertise. We'd also like to thank our presenting sponsors so far. They are Capital Direct and Rexall Care Network. We are grateful for their partnership. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will subscribe and leave a comment. We do love reading them. You can also find us on all of the social media channels at The Heart of It All Pod. Jess and Carrie from 6 of 1 Digital are my ride or die co-producers on this podcast, and all three of us are grateful to you for listening. Have a great week, and please take care. In the late 90s and early aughts, you just couldn't get any hotter than Renee Zellweger. After Jerry Maguire and before The Bridget Jones Diary, Renee made a movie with the Meryl Streep called One True Thing about a daughter caring for her mother. You will cry, but it'll take you back to a magical time in movies with two superstars. It's called One True Thing, and it's this week's recommend from The Heart of It All.